Hi, I'm Dr. Mark, and I'm going to help you sing and perform more like the top artists around the world. I'm a professional voice teacher, performance coach, and opera stage director. I've helped thousands of singers around the world learn the techniques and methods that got the top singers to where they are. Let's talk about what makes BTS's music video of Black Swan so awesome. Usually, I'm trying to find live performances and talk about those because those give us the most accurate representation of what they're really doing with their voice physically so that we can see that and see what's coming out of their mouth. A lot of times with music videos, because they're recorded separately from what we're actually seeing there, it isn't as reliable. But I really wanted to do the video this go around and talk about it because I thought there's some really cool things going on there. And I also think that a lot of what I've seen them in live performance matches what they do here in the music video. So having watched that a lot back and forth, both their music videos and their live performance, and seeing that they're very consistent, that it seems like, why not? Let's talk about a music video. So let's do this. Here we go. Okay, what are we seeing so far? Well, we're seeing them in these white suits, which is awesome, high status, bare feet, which makes it feel organic, natural, and it really forces us to look at what they're doing in a way that is not traditional or normal. You don't expect to see bare feet with white suits. So it puts our brain on alert to try to start making meaning of, what does this mean? What do we get from this? Where are they? What's going on? So what can we learn? Well, these unique elements that put a little wrinkle in what we're seeing, is unexpected, are really important to engage the audience and get them to start thinking about what you're trying to communicate. If everything is status quo, expected, not unique, not anything that's kind of surprising or unusual, then the audience can kind of tune it out. It just blends into the everyday and the normal. So the bare feet provide that bit of a wrinkle that draws our attention. The other thing you'll notice is, because they're in white suits, that black around them is really, really intense. Our focus really centers on them, so that when we get the detail of the architecture around it, it just frames it and creates this detail and visual interest and piques our interest even further in what's going on and where they are, and trying to establish the story and context of what's happening. Remember that our brain is always trying to understand the context or the story of what's going on around us. It can't help but do that. And so they're creating very tantalizing little tidbits that are pulling us in, drawing our attention, so that they can introduce and then give us more information about the story that's going on and what this song's all about. So let's see what else we got. Love the shadow work. Do you see all that cool shadow work behind it? Oh my gosh, so cool. It looks like the shadow is the person we're looking at, but the shadow's moving and dancing in ways that the person isn't. So that, I know this seems so super obvious, but it's so cool that that shadow then becomes a manifestation of the singer's internal world, right? And this duality, this juxtaposition and contrast, feels so surreal, but it's so expressive, and we can just kind of believe it. It feels organic because it just makes sense. Like, our brain puts this person in that shadow, looks like it comes from this person, but wait, it's moving, the singer's not. So cool. Love it. So cool. Notice how their costumes were jumping back and forth between pure white to black, pure white to black. What does that mean to you? Comment down below. Let me know what you think. That can symbolize the duality of someone's psyche, their emotions, their spirituality, whatever. It can just be a way to really emphasize heightened contrast. It can be so many different things, but it's something. And we know it's something and not a mistake because it's so purposeful. It's all white with some texture elements in there, and it's all black. Suits and suits. So though there's a lot of contrast, there's enough that is the same that lets us know that these belong in the same world. We're also seeing the same kind of romantic, Baroque-esque architecture that's really elaborate and is drawing our attention in both worlds. So it lets us know that this contrast, this white and black, is really where we're supposed to focus our attention in terms of creating meaning from this, that everything else is just setting up the atmosphere from it. So what can you do and take away from this? Well, in your performance, think, what am I really wanting to communicate? If I had to condense this down into one word, at most 2 contrasting words, what would it be? What am I trying to communicate in this song? What is this song about? And then try to find visual elements that really locate us and are consistent. For example, the architecture here, the lighting, and then also very specific elements that heighten and draw our attention to the meaning of what you're wanting to express. But what we don't want to have is we don't want to have things completely changing visual worlds within a single song, unless the song itself has a huge change and it totally changes worlds within the song. If it does that, then that might be a different story and exception. That's not the case here. And so they are able to keep the world within that same song, but visually show us heightened contrast and give us a lot of interesting images to look at, and consequently give us lots to think about. Okay, other thing I want to emphasize with what we're doing vocally here, you'll notice that the airflow is actually really consistent, even though there are these kind of abrupt, and it has kind of this funk to it, right? The airflow is actually consistent. What's giving us that kind of edge, that kind of sass and pop to it is the strong consonants. A lot of singers, when they try to imitate this type of thing, end up stopping their airflow, and that creates tension. It sounds like a mistake. It sounds amateur. Here, the airflow is consistent. It's just adding the texture with the consonants itself while the airflow is staying relatively consistent and fluid. The melody is also adding variety and interest to it as well. So don't be lured into stopping your airflow, pushing, straining, stressing to try to give emotional or verbal emphasis or to give a stylistic emphasis. You can usually achieve the same thing in a way where the airflow still stays consistent by really emphasizing the consonants and being a little more aggressive with those consonants and trusting the pitch and dynamics to do the rest of the work for you as well. One of the other inherent contrasts in all of these groups that BTS uses to excellent effect is the group dynamic versus the person by themselves. Going back and forth here between the entire group and a single person really heightens this sense of isolation of that one person or hyper focus on that one person. It also makes us relate with that one person by going back and forth over and over. For some reason in our psyche, that makes us identify as that person that we're watching, or at least identify with. And so it really creates this strong reaction to going from group to all alone, group to all alone. And you realize the alone sections are often in a large space. So there is no way for us to interpret that as we're just looking at one person and the rest of the group is there in the room. It really gives us the feeling that this person is isolated and alone. And that really has a strong emotional impact. It's hardwired into us deep in our core to want to be part of the group. We're kind of pack animals for the most part. And so to see that here really draws our attention, pulls us in, and helps us feel empathetic towards the person we're seeing there. Okay, notice that they now, with just saying that, they went through and highlighted each specific person all alone. And so in essence, what that did is it made us feel empathetic and connected to each one of those members of the group. Brilliant. From a psychological standpoint, but also connect with what's going on musically, because it's not just this group of people doing stuff where we don't really focus on anyone. We have a moment to really process the group as distinct individuals so that when we see them together again, they're real people to us. Even if this is the first thing we've ever seen of BTS, which my guess is if you're watching this, this is not the first thing you've ever seen of BTS, but it still has the same emotional and psychological impact. Okay, as I'm watching here, one of the things that's making me think of is about gesture. And usually when we think about gesture, it's what we're doing with our hands, right? But the reality is a gesture is anything we do with our body. So their dance, it's a form of gesture, of physical expression. What we want anytime we're doing a gesture, whether it's with our hands, our face, our entire body, a dance move, we want to contour that gesture to the musical phrase. If we have music, our body should be mirroring that. Not that it should be the exact same tempo, but that the apex, the most intense part of the phrase, should be also the most intense part of our gesture. The least intense part of the phrase should be our least intense moment of the gesture as well, so that we have this constant ebb and flow of gesture. And you'll notice here that they do it brilliantly. Their body is always accenting the word that needs to be accented, the musical moment that needs to be accented, whether it's dance, whether it's just they're rapping and their hands are doing their thing, or they're a soloist singing. Their gestures are always contoured to the music. And that makes it really potent, really expressive, makes it feel really organic and natural, and really lets us believe that they mean what they say. So really cool. So what begs the question is, why are we in a theater this whole time? Or in this, I guess we're in a mirrored room, but it's still this kind of stage-esque environment, right? Where we're hyper aware of the person or people who are there. Comment down below. I want to hear what you have to say. I have my own theories and thoughts on the meaning behind this and what's going on, what they're saying, the backstory, just like you. But that's for me to think about. You can come up with your own. Would love to hear it down below. Awesome stuff. Really, even if I didn't have my own theories, my brain has so much material to generate story and meaning and thought from, there are a bazillion options of what it could mean to me as an individual, even if it's not exactly what they intended as an artist. They give me so much detail, and with each detail that I draw attention to, I'm able to get a clearer and clearer picture of what's being communicated. And that's the sign of really excellent art. The closer we look, the more meaning we find. And the more angles we look at it from, the more meaning we find. If we look at it closer and it becomes more obscure and things don't match up and don't line up and it starts not to work or it doesn't really mean anything, then we know we've come across something that isn't exceptional art. That's not this. This is something exceptional because of the detail. And for them, it seems like all of their songs always orient around a story. And to me, that's one of the key elements that I think makes them so successful, is that they are all geared in towards the same story and telling the same story. So even when they have their individual moments, that center linchpin is always there. Love it. Love it. It is awesome. Especially that shadow bit at the end, showing it's on purpose, showing what's really going on. I love their little tag moments at the beginning and ending of songs, especially in their music videos. That gives you just that little bit more information that finishes the story out. One of the things we can learn from that as a performer is not necessarily that we have to do that, but that we have to be aware of what the story is before the song starts and after the song ends. That gives the song life. It really lets it come alive from the very first note and beyond the very last one. So it feels like we're taking a snapshot out of real life or out of this imaginary person character's life instead of it's a beginning and end. And it makes it so much more vibrant, so much more engaging, and lets our brain still keep mulling it over and thinking about it. Because on a subconscious level, our brain thinks of it as an ongoing event that had something going on before it and after, rather than just an event that started and stopped and is all over. So really is important as a performer to think about what happens before your song and what happens after story-wise. What would you imagine? The beginning, what is it that would make the music have to start playing or you have to start singing? What is it that would have had to have happened? And at the end, what would be the natural next step of where your character would go, what they would sing, what they would feel, what they would do, and what would happen? So that you can carry that energy beyond when the music stops. In general, when we're performing, we want that character to come alive before we hear that music sound, and we want the character to stay alive at least one full measure after the music ends. There's something magical about doing that that lets the audience really believe, empathize, engage, and, at least for the moment, suspend their disbelief and really empathize with you as the performer and with what you're trying to communicate. As always, it's a pleasure to watch BTS. I love how specific, detailed, and committed they are to every single performance that I've seen them do, and in how committed they are to communicating and engaging their audience on every single level possible. Love it. So awesome. Don't forget to click like and subscribe. You can find me on Wizio.com if you have a short 5 to 7 minute video clip that you want to send my way for some comments of what you could do to make your performance even better or your singing even easier. If you want a voice lesson, a performance coaching, or want me to work with you or your group to help you sing easier or perform at a consistently higher level, book a time with me at mrperformingartstudio.com. I look forward to working with you online.